the hard part about all of this is you've got to avoid stagnation. A lot of guys, and I've been saying this for years, a lot of guys will read, a book like, say, Corey Wayne's How to Be a 3% Man, and they'll read it 10 to 15 times. And then they'll read it just long enough to get into a relationship, to get with a girl, right? To get their girlfriend. And then they'll stop reading it. They'll stop reading it and they think that they've got it. Well, you can't undo, 20, 30, 40 years of bad programming with just a couple of reads, right? You've got to keep it fresh on your mind. You have to at least revisit it once a year. After that, revisit the material. And at the end of this book, I invite you to read this 10 to 15 times, but don't stop there. Like if you start seeing noticeable improvements in your relationship, at least revisit it once a year. You know what I mean? That will help you avoid complacency because it will always be on the, in your mind somewhere. You'll always be thinking about this sort of thing. So you really want to strive for, you always want to make this a part, like you adopt the mantra of the work never stops, right? Because striving for growth prevents stagnation and maintains respect and desire. If your wife is always seeing you working on yourself, she's never going to get tired of that. She's never going to get tired of that. She will get tired of you sitting on the fucking couch watching football all the time and never doing anything to improve your life. Okay. Now, I'm not saying don't watch football, but don't make your whole life around that and then never do anything for yourself to improve yourself. Okay. Respect as the foundation. Without respect, there can be no attraction, right? Women can't love a man that they don't respect. And so you have to increase your sexual market value enough to a place where she starts respecting you again, because only then can she be attracted to you and be in love with you. So you've got to earn respect, though. You can't demand respect. Because I've had guys tell me this over the years, like, how do I make my girl respect me? I'm like, we can't make her respect you. Like, respect is earned. So this consistent self-improvement in leadership that naturally builds respect over time. When she sees that you have your shit together, that you're a man on a mission, that you're always working on yourself, you're always working on, all this type of stuff, and you allow her to relax into her feminine, that naturally fosters respect. Okay. And that's essential for desire, because without respect, attraction and intimacy completely fades. Okay. And that's what we want at the end of the day. We want that genuine desire. And if she had genuine desire for you in the beginning and you've lost that along the way, I guarantee you've lost her respect along the way. Right. And that's why I'm constantly hounding guys to set the tone and lead, because that's the role in leadership, right? Women respect men who confidently lead themselves and the relationship. And you can't lead the relationship until you lead yourself first. So you got to start there, right? I had a guy yesterday I was chatting with on TikTok, in the TikTok DMs. And this guy, I asked him, what his ideal situation would be. And his ideal situation was, well, I need her to get better so I can get better. And I'm like, wait, you need to wait for your wife to get better before you can start getting better? Why don't you just start getting better? That statement didn't make any damn sense to me. Like, you don't need to wait for her to start improving yourself, right? You take the lead in that area. You lead by example with that. Okay. That's how that works. If you're waiting for her to set the tone and lead in that area, you're asking her to be in her masculine energy, which fucks up polarity. Speaking of polarity, that's a big concept in this chapter: polarity in relationships, the balance of masculine and feminine energies, right? Polarity fuels passion and attraction, right? Without it, everything fades, everything dies. Okay. So you have to maintain leadership. And if you've lost it along the way, you've got to reclaim that. You've got to start setting the tone and leading again. Taking charge ensures that masculine energy stays intact. Okay. And you want to avoid over accommodation. So leading with strength prevents erosion and respect, and polarity. So that's a big problem with nice guys have, is they become overly accommodating, and they start, trying to walk on eggshells, trying to avoid any kind of tension, avoid any kind of arguments. If their wife asks them to do something that they really don't want to do, but they want to avoid a fight, they'll accommodate the request instead of setting a boundary and telling their wife no. Right. Well, that over accommodation, if she's able to get her way with you, she loses respect. I was one of my clients I was working with yesterday. That was one of the problems that caused him to be where he's at today, because years ago, he let his wife's parents move in with them, and he didn't really want that. Well, actually, he said that it sounded good in the beginning because they were originally coming down to help with their kids. They just had a baby, and the parents were moving down closer to help them with the kids. So he thought that was a good idea, but they never fucking left. Right? They never fucking left. And then his wife, basically as a bargaining chip, his wife said, my parents, since they're moving in with us, my parents and I will handle all the chores around the house. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So he's like, okay. And he let them take over all maintenance and chores around the house. And then several years later, they're like, what? You're so lazy. Like, you never do anything around here. And he's like, well, you told me to, right? Like, you told me not to do any chores around the house. So that builds up natural resentment. And I told him, I go, yeah, it's a funny thing, right? If women can manipulate us into doing what they say they want, they lose respect for us. So it's one of those things where you just have to understand that women don't know what they really want, that there's things that they respond to, and you got to understand, like, you have to be able to tell her no in those types of circumstances, and not allow yourself to be manipulated, because the more they can manipulate you, the more they lose respect for you, right? Whammon. And then they complain that we're manipulators. It's like, oh, women invented that shit. Women totally invented that shit. And then the final concept here is that consistency is key, right? You have to be consistent with this stuff. Consistency sustains improvement. Regular effort creates lasting momentum and progress. A big part of this too is like building this into a habit, right? You want to make fitness a habit. You want to make your financial leadership a habit. You want to make being social a habit, because if it's a habit, it's something that you don't have to think about anymore. Like, this is now a part of who you are, right? And then you'll naturally be consistent. At first, it's going to take work to build up those good habits, but the key is to be consistent with it, because if you're not consistent with it, if you do good with the finances for a couple of months and then fall off again, your wife can't trust that. She can't trust you leading in that area if you're not being consistent with it. So you have to be consistent. And that consistency also signals dedication, right? It shows your wife that self-improvement is a lifestyle, not just a phase. Now, one of the things that I'll tell guys is it's best to start working on this stuff and not tell your wife that you're working on this stuff, right? Now, she might be curious when you're holding a copy of Get Her to Fuck You Again, right? So if that's a issue for you, you might want to get the Kindle edition or get the Audible edition, but don't be scared that your wife might find the book, okay? Because all you have to do is just tell her, well, I'm working on myself, right? But the thing is, like, when a woman knows that you're working on self-improvement, she will test you more than she normally would, because she wants to make sure that these new changes that you're making are you, that they're a part of who you are, that you're being congruent. It's not just some, facade that you're putting out there. That's one of the big problems with pickup artistry, from the early 2000s, guys like Mystery and stuff like that, is they were doing these tactics to get women to sleep with them, but it was all fake. It wasn't a part of who they were. And then when they really wanted a relationship, they couldn't fucking maintain that relationship because they didn't really have it built into them, So like, this has to become a part of who you are, or it's all going to fall flat.
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.